how do you teach children how to follow the Spirit?
Wow. Well, I share with them. Okay, we also had another experience.
All right.
Okay, I had a son. My oldest son was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
He was 12. It was that teen years that Richard Hinckley was going through, and he trusted his dad. And I was afraid I was going to lose my son. He was getting a lot of bullying at church. And to the point that he didn't even want to sit with us at church. It was hard.
Wow.
It was hard. And I was pleading with the Lord what to do. And I got the impression that we needed to do something called teaching correct principles.
Okay.
And that's what I called it.
Okay.
And what we were going to do is take a gospel topic on Sunday, put a bunch of topics in a jar, and just pull out a topic. And that was going to be, we all got to study whatever resources that we had available. We could use the Ensign, the scriptures, we could use other church magazines, church manuals. I also had a good gospel library that we had built. You could use anything that you felt drawn to help you articulate from your mind what this gospel principle means to you. And everybody would get a chance to share.
Yeah.
So we started, this was 1980, well, he was 12, so it would be 87.
Okay.
It was 87. And it was March, and the first one we pulled out was Keeping the Sabbath Day Holy. And I thought, wow, okay. So we went to it. There were a lot of good magazine articles. Ensign did, I think, in 1980, did a January issue on keeping the Sabbath day holy. There was a lot in the scriptures. But we were going to have the expressions or the impressions of my 12-year-old son, my 10-year-old son, and my 8-year-old daughter.
Okay.
And I had a new baby in arms. And it was March. He was born in July. And I was sitting in the recliner, and we were each at the point where we were sharing what we learned. And my daughter got up and she said, if we keep the Sabbath day holy, and she was reading from Leviticus, that the Lord would fight our battles for us. And I thought, what nation doesn't need that kind of protection?
Yeah.
He'd lead us in battle and we would be victorious, you know? We would have harvest from planting to the vintage would be full.
Yeah.
So we would have all that we needed to eat. We would have clothing. We would be cared for. And I thought, what an incredible blessing. And just as she finished her presentation, we hear all this racket upstairs. I'm wondering, what is going on? And they run up the stairs to see what's happening. And I pick up the baby and I start up the stairs. And I get halfway up the stairs and I realize that it's a hailstorm.
Oh.
And my peas are just coming in.
Oh, shoot.
And so I started praying, Heavenly Father, this is an opportunity to teach my children about keeping the Sabbath day holy. We were keeping the Sabbath day holy. Please protect my peace. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, I get up to the top of the stairs. My oldest son's pressed against the window. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it. And my daughters, I know what's going on. And her other brothers, what's going on? Dad says, Mom prayed. And I thought, okay, what's going on? So I couldn't wait to get up there. And I get up there, and I have a garden. You know how a capital E has 3 prongs? Well, my garden had 4 raised beds. Along the north end had a long raised bed, and then 4 prongs coming out.
Okay.
And the peas were planted in the prongs.
Okay.
And they were just coming on. So this is sometime in March, beginning of April. And I get there, and the hail is coming down, and it's pea-size hail. It's that white balls.
Yes.
And some as big as small marbles. They are landing in the pathways, but not on the raised beds. Any ones that ended up on the raised beds hit the pathway and bounced up, so nothing that could damage anything. It was almost like angels were standing there with umbrellas
Oh,
protecting
my gosh.
all the beds. If it was a long bed, somebody could say, it was the edge of the storm. But how do you scientifically describe how these long 12-foot beds could have hail falling in the fingers in between them and not on the beds, other than the answered prayer?
Yeah.
God
angels
was
were covering them.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so my daughter writes about that on her blog. That is her miracle.
Wow.
And they heard an answered prayer. Another time, I had a daughter who wanted to take a paper out. It was a Sunday. And I thought, oh boy, this is a hard one for Mom, teaching them correct principles. I just looked at her and I said, but it means you'll have to work on Sunday. And she says, but I need the money to go to camp and all this kind of stuff. And I just looked at her and I said, don't you trust the Lord? That's all I said. Don't you trust the Lord?
Oh, wow.
No lecture. I said, it's up to you. So she took the paper out. And again, I had a newborn baby. And I was in bed on the first Sunday she went out, feeding the baby, cuddling him, and all of a sudden I got this impression that something was dreadfully wrong. My husband was in the shower. I got out of bed. I said, there's something wrong with Julie. She is not safe. Something is wrong. And so he got out of the shower, and by the time he was dressed and got to the front door, she staggered in and collapsed on the floor. She was a very thin girl. She had walked for a few blocks. It was winter. It was January. This baby was born January 11th, and it was toward the end of the month, and it was very cold out there. And she reiterated what had happened. She said, I'm canceling my paper out. And what had happened was she got very cold. She didn't have a lot of body fat to keep her warm. She got very cold, and she sat down on a curb. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. So nobody was at church.
Right.
She looked up the street and she saw a church. And the Spirit said, if you do not turn home now, you will not make it. She looked up at this church and she started toward the church. And she got real cold and she sat down on the curb. And it was again. And then she heard, don't you trust the Lord? And she got up and she went home and made it and then collapsed. And she was thermic, it took us about 48 hours to completely stabilize her.
Wow.
But her brothers went out and finished the route that morning, and we called the lady and canceled the route. And lo and behold, a week later, she was offered a paper route that had no Sunday deliveries. So she trusted the Lord. And I said, do you trust the Lord? He'll come through. He'll come through for you, and you'll be fine. So you teach them through teaching the gospel, letting them teach the gospel to themselves, like the teaching correct principles, and when they're teaching you, it solidifies in their mind what's right and wrong, instead of me just telling them, and that's just what Mom said, No, the Spirit will testify to them truth to their heart while they're doing it, and while they're teaching their siblings, it will testify. And I thought it was really interesting how the church has come along to that way with the youth program and with Relief Society and priesthood.
Yeah, me too. Pretty exciting.
It gives that opportunity.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Good.